So, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Talking Sales. I'm Greg Accardo. I'm the director of the LSU Professional Sales Institute. Happy to have Mr. Henry Hayes here today as a really special guest. Henry is pretty inspirational. He's got a lot of great ideas. I wish I could copy some of them, but I guess I've got other talents. I'll let him have the great stuff. But Henry's the co-founder or founder of a great new company called Disrupt Ready. So, Henry, I'll turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about you and where you are today with this journey in AI.
Yeah, Greg, always good to be with you and always good to see the three letters LSU. Anything involving the Tigers, I'm in on. So it's great to be back in this fall semester. Yeah, Disrupt Ready is a lot of fun. It's kind of a culmination of a lot of mini little perfect storms that have been kind of brewing over my career. The majority of which is this idea of change is happening under all of our feet a lot quicker than most folks are ready for. And we've been following this for years, and it was really more theoretical than the kind of thing that you needed to put into practice. And then artificial intelligence hit mainstream. Since then, it's like taking a big old Louisiana match to a very dry pile of wood, and you got a flame. And so what we try to do is we try to make what seems to be the complex simple, because our market bet, Greg, was the folks that are running businesses that you and I know are wearing themselves out just running their business, meaning very few executives have 4, 5, 6 hours in a week to dedicate to kind of an emerging technology and the role it should play in their business. So that's what we do. We've become a guide for those who say, we don't even know what we don't know. So it's been a lot of fun. A lot of our work is artificial intelligence today, but that's not the only thing we do. Things like the blockchain and augmented and virtual reality and the Internet of Things and drones and robots, all these new advancements are coming to change things. And again, quicker than people are ready for. So never a dull moment.
So you did speak at our symposium, our AI in Sales symposium last spring. I think you did a really good job. Had a lot of great comments. I think you're really engaging. Some great content. Really inspiring people. People told me after that they were really excited to go and try some of the things that they learned, things they heard from people like you. See if they can make their businesses better, their sales operations better. But let's talk a little bit about Disrupt Ready, because this is kind of a new kid on the block. So tell us about the company and what inspired you to co-found it.
So as silly as it sounds, and a lot of people know my story these days, Greg, it was Blockbuster. I was coming off an exit, which I was a big part of in my early 40s, and the Blockbuster video stores in Baton Rouge closed, boarded up. And I thought at the time, and I still do, that it's an odd sight. No one had seen that before. It's like a McDonald's closing up or a Walmart. And so I did the deep dive on what happened. And what we thought was a little pesky, ride-along, fun choice named Netflix ended up kneecapping a behemoth. And so the thought in my mind was, okay, if this can happen to them, who's next? And so this began my journey. I don't think I'll ever do something different the rest of my career because it's so interesting, which centered around the question, who is next? And then what was causing it? And what was causing it was emerging technologies. So in other words, tech that the public really didn't have their head around, matched with, in most cases, a new business model. In Netflix's case, they ditched the idea of late fees, which we thought, can you do that? And sure enough, you could. And so Disrupt Ready is literally named that because disruption is coming. Are you ready? Because I think that most traditional businesses obviously want to stick around. The trick becomes, can you look in the mirror and disrupt/change your model enough to stay relevant and growing and thriving in the game? And so we started the company to be able to act as a guide for those small to medium-sized businesses that raise their hand and go, okay, we want disruption. We don't want someone knocking on our door saying the rules of the game have changed and now we're done. And so those are the kinds of people that we serve. And that's kind of our, that's why we're here.
So sticking with the topic on Disrupt Ready, so I see one of your offerings that you offer these workshops that you call AI in one day.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? And some other services. So can you kind of elaborate on some of those and what are the benefits for business owners if they might want to enroll in one of your workshops?
So we're doing this podcast in late August of 2024, Greg. And by this time, look, you'd have to be living on the moon not to have heard about artificial intelligence, whether it's a headline or a joke or any number of ways. And so the drumbeat's getting so loud that most businesses are coming to us saying, okay, what is it? What do we do? AI in a day is in a non-technical manner. That's important. It's what is this? Where does it come from? How does it work? Who's behind it? And maybe most importantly, who's using this in our business? Because that's what business executives really want to know. Where can we step? Where should we step in? How do we assess, what that possibility would look like? So we help with all of that. Things like discerning what is a large language model? How do they work? What's different from ChatGPT as opposed to Gemini? What is a tokenization? So all these buzzwords we kind of go through because, Greg, any executive that wants to kind of step into an AI product or an AI work stream, it's going to have to be a third-party vendor of choice, meaning nobody has the tech stack, the engineering expertise, or the money to do it themselves. So if you're going to make a third-party decision, our thought is you need to speak the language. So we basically teach them the language in a day, which gets them then ready to say, okay, we're gonna enter this in our business operations or our sales and marketing or our customer communications or any number of a bunch of other choices. Mm-hmm. So until you have that fundamental basis, it's hard to make a choice.
It's almost like it sounds like the whole AI movement is going to have its own acumen.
I think that's a correct statement. And the jargon around it. Look, the quicker you get comfortable with, again, the bases, how it works, foundationally, what is it? Another great thing, Greg, ask folks that are listening and watching, can you give it a sentence to someone at a crawfish boil that 13 years old, 63 years old, anybody in between, and they can understand it. That's when you get to kind of good old fashioned, understanding the technology. And then it's what can it do for us? Because part of the time we have to kind of get it out of their mindset, Greg, that this is not their enemy; it's a friend. And so we gotta shift the mind. But if we can do that, then we're rolling downhill.
So staying on the topic again with Disrupt Ready, tell me, give a description of a couple of services or how you can help legacy businesses when they're on this journey trying to adopt these new emerging technologies, because everybody's scared. Sure. When you bring up this topic and you talk to business leaders and owners, a lot of them want to go and hide in the closet. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just from a lack of knowledge and understanding, but there is some fear. Okay. So it sounds like you may be more, hey, we're going to put you at ease. Does that sound correct?
100%. And in fact, I would challenge that thinking and I would tell them, look, sit with us. We're going to flip that script. We're going to make you think, wow, this is what we've been waiting for as a small business. Meaning most of the folks we work with, Greg, are small to medium size, which means they've always said, if we just had more resources or if I had more people or if I was just bigger, well, those dreams can come true if you correctly step into AI. And look, I'll unpack that from the macro to the micro. What we do is we set the technology aside, Greg, and talk about just tell us what's mundane, boring, repetitive, and that frankly, your folks don't really love doing. If we can put our fingers on those tasks, there's a really good chance that AI or machine learning can replace a lot of the human input. And what I just said, look, most of those things that humans are asked to do, they're not going to fight you if you take it away from them. Then the trick becomes Greg Accardo, the owner, has to figure out, all right, what do I do now that Sally has 4 hours back a week? How do we repurpose that time such that maybe she's more creative, or she's dealing face to face with clients, or, what does she do with that time? So if you boil it down to those principles, it can make a small business of 7 look like 27.
Mm-hmm.
It can do things in a much more, much faster fashion, and almost all the time cheaper. So again, demystifying what this is and what it isn't. And most of our business clients then get their head around and go, okay, let's try some things. Let's get to building.
I heard somebody make a comment not long ago that described our current environment with AI, where we are today,
Mm-hmm.
that we're still in the dial-up phase. We haven't reached broadband yet.
Yeah, I like sports, Greg, so I'm often fond of saying we're in the bottom of the first inning, maybe about to get to the top of the second.
Mm-hmm.
Problem, if you're a baseball fan, is some of these innings are 8-pitch innings, meaning they're quicker than you think. And so the key is to get a pilot. And I'll tell our clients, Greg, look, I want you to skin your knee, because that's the only way we learn how to exactly use this technology such that it fits you. Because one size does not fit all here. Your needs would be different than mine, and that's okay. It should be that way. But the only way you learn that is you try things and you learn and move on. I think there's a lot of fear which is holding people back, and that's dangerous. But I think that's the front of our brains saying we have a fight or a flight reflex, and most of the time it's thinking, Greg, run from this, run to safety, and that's not a good strategy.
Yeah. So you're on the cutting edge of all this, and you're kind of on that space between the technology and the business owners who would benefit from it. You're trying to bridge that gap. I'm curious about this. What are some of the most exciting technological advancements you see down the road that could disrupt current business models?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones we're going to see soon, Greg, will be really the complete disruption of the way we advertise and sell things. And I'll walk you through that. So there's a phrase that you and I are familiar with, which is one size fits all, right? And if you think about the majority of messaging we see in today's market, whether it's a television commercial or a radio spot or a billboard, it's the same. It's that message, which is to be consumed by thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of people. Well, right off the bat, logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because Greg is a little different than Henry, which means we would receive and say yes or no on different stimulus. So we should hear it in a different way. Where you work, I've often said that the 21-year-old LSU football fan should be messaged differently than the 71-year-old LSU football fan. The 71-year-old's not on Snapchat, but the 21-year-old is. And so that's where his attention is. So little things like that, when you cobble it together, it's going to really reshape the way we message to sell our product. And I think we're going to look back and think that we were in the Stone Age of communicating, because to think that everyone should have, had an action on a single message is ridiculous. It's like saying we all eat the same food. And so it really has the ability to not only get inside someone's database to say, how many different personas do we have in the LSU fan ecosystem? Is it 91, 110, a dozen? I don't know. But there's a number, meaning these people look and sound and, are incented alike. And so once we have that, you're able to really tailor that message, and then where they are, and then what they want, what they want to hear. So I'm really bullish on that one, because I think we're going to look back at this time and think, man, we wasted a lot of time and money trying to get new customers, new students, blank to your business that you had no shot of getting. And so that's going to really change that whole, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars annually in that industry alone.
Well, then I guess now you got to give some advice. So, what do you say to those business owners that are looking to maybe start this journey with AI and emerging technologies? I mean, what initial steps? I mean, what's step one?
Step one would be tell me exactly what you want. And usually we say, okay, drop the tech for a second. Let's talk efficiency in your business. Does it run as efficiently as you want? No one says yes. Productivity of your employees. Are they as productive as you think they can be? And then number three, future revenue. Where's it going to come from? And so when we sit in those three buckets, Greg, we can typically find either human kinks in the workflow or things that can be done faster and better. And so when we find that, we say, great, let's say where you work. They were to say, we want more students in the freshman class. Okay. I would say, let's look back in your data, because you haven't, and let's understand who said yes and why. Meaning, if you're going to go for new customers, I think it's logical that you would double and triple down on the people that have said yes. And that's a really interesting data pyramid, right? And maybe 8 or 9 or 10 reasons. We would find it using AI, digging into your database. And then we would design outreach campaigns that targeted those kinds of students and didn't target others, because the data drives the decision to say, this is what your student population looks like. Now, if you said, great, Henry, but I also want more of these, which we don't have, okay, you could do that too by getting as specific as possible that it's a kid from the Northeast that has X test score, that played 2 sports in high school, that was a class officer, and had brothers and sisters, or whatever. You can get that minute, and then you can craft a message and a programmatic outreach to that sleeve of persona
Mm-hmm.
that then you message to. That's kind of how we go about that. Because we think there's too much of the human saying, well, we're going to throw mud at the wall and we're going to take what sticks. You can do it, but it's not efficient and it's not productive. So those are a few of the ideas that we would think to use.
So, there's always this topic that comes up. In really AI is kind of the buzzword now. I mean, here we are, 2024. We have a presidential election, and AI is being talked about as campaign issues now. Which would you have even thought of that would happen? 5 years ago? No. I mean,
Yeah.
it's becoming that much of a tidal wave that now it's found its way into national political campaigns. This whole initiative around AI. But getting back to the business owner, so if I'm a business owner and I say, yeah, I have a problem. I'm not utilizing AI, and I'm afraid that if I don't, I'm going to fall behind. Would one of the first steps that I would need to do as an owner is maybe have a dedicated innovation strategy for the company?
That's for sure. Again, it goes back to Greg. I made this point. I had a speech this morning in New Orleans, and I made this point. If Greg and Henry are going to start a business in Brazil, and we're on the plane ride down there, and we're excited, and Greg says, "Oh, by the way, Henry, you do speak Portuguese, right?" And I say, "I don't know a word." And we look at each other and go, "Ooh, is this the right choice?" Because if we don't speak the language, you're really at a disadvantage. So we would say, in a non-technical fashion, the owners and the executives have got to at least get in their head 4 paragraphs deep of what this is. How does it work? Where does it come from? Who's using it in your industry? Because when you get your head around that, you can then build a strategy, or you can say, these things are available. We're going to step into this one, and then this one, and then this one. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts at a wall, and it the chances of success are way, way lower.
Well, Henry, doesn't that sound like some of the hand holding or guidance that you offer business?
That's exactly right. And, that's why we built that product, to say, we'll hold your hand and get you on the other side of the fear, right? And then once we do that, we will get you into a pilot. So we're that guide or that strategic coach that gets them educated, number one, and then we give heavy strategic advice. And then number three, we can build it for them if they choose us to do that.
Yeah, probably. I guess the worst mistake that owner could make would be just to do nothing.
Yeah, that's the worst. Even if they say, Greg, Henry, we know what it is, we're going to sit it out. I would rather them do that than do nothing. So, absolutely, you are right. Because, look, here's the thing in today's market, it's getting harder and harder to hire and keep people. Okay. And I don't think that's going to get better. So, we've got to get better as business owners of automating tasks that humans either don't like doing or the systems can do better at a cheaper rate and more efficiently. Because otherwise, if you don't do that and your competitor does, I don't see how you compete. You certainly probably can't compete on price because you're paying too much in capital expense to run your business. And then look, it's not really the type of workplace that other people are attracted to. So we're really getting to the point where to not know what it can do and just keep going on as you've been, it's not a winning strategy.
Well, that's I would hope that message would permeate that. Hey, if you're in leadership in small, medium sized, even large businesses, your best advice is to number one start crafting that innovation strategy for your team. And if you need some help, get some help, advice on it, but develop a strategy and come up with an execution plan.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, the time to start was yesterday. And knowing this too, Greg, nobody's ever going to get it 100% right. You're going to scrape your knee. That's okay. In fact, I'd rather you do that because that's how you learn. This isn't this isn't handed to anybody on a silver platter. Um, and so, you know, um, the time to start was yesterday, and we do that work.
Yeah. Well, we shift our focus a little bit now into my domain, which is sales and sales management. And let's talk about some of the impacts that we're seeing artificial intelligence having in that area because if anything, it's impacting that more than anything. It's really it's changing the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see AI transforming the sales profession, let's say the next 3 to 5 years?
And this is where it's so interesting, Greg, because a lot of folks don't equate what you and I do as being affected or impacted by AI. I'm not sure why, but ironically, it probably has the greatest impact. And let's unpack it. So a lot of if you take a lot of a salesperson's day, Monday through Friday, and start to um, take apart the job, what do they do in the job to be successful? There are a lot of pieces where a great sales guy or a great saleswoman would go, okay, I don't love that, but I just do it because it's part of the job. Cold research, cold emails, replying to emails,
Mhm.
calendaring, all the operational pieces around a great salesperson. A lot of times, great salespeople aren't good at both. They're good at one or the other. And so, what an incredible opportunity to inject, to augment that salesperson with those things I just mentioned, almost as if think of it as like a Greg assist, a GA, where that Greg assist that Greg continually trusts with new tasks, you wonder where your life has been without him because it's doing this stuff for you. And it's like saying when you and I were growing up, Greg, we'd whip open the yellow pages and look for pizza places. Well, our kids don't even know what a yellow page is, right? Because search on the internet's become a great assist. This is that times 100 for salespeople. Another way to look at it is this: when you take um, your salespeople and ask them when are you alive? When are you at your best? And almost all of them, Greg would say, when I'm in front of a customer and when it's closing time or providing value for them. Okay, so then we would say we're going to work around the periphery of all the things that you do, right? As a salesperson,
Mhm.
get you in that hot zone as best we can. Meaning, ideally, 100% efficiently, he or she's doing that almost the whole time. And people say, wait a minute, does that mean that AI can make appointments for me and bring clients to a period where they would click on my calendar and book an appointment with me? The answer is yes, we can. Appropriately designed. And so all that work, whether you're a financial advisor, you sell insurance or whatever else, that's what it can do for you. So massive assist in getting them in the comfort layer of what they really love to do in the sales profession. And then, frankly, the job just becomes a lot more enjoyable at that point.
With the digital transformation that occurred in sales, I mean, we could probably go back almost 20 years, but the big topics then were augmentation, automation, which was to cut down on tasks, give the salespeople more time in the field in front of the customers, which is valuable. The most valuable part of their day is the more they can meet with customers. To do that, you've got to cut down on some tasks. So there was a big effort and a focus on augmentation, automation, a lot of those back end duties that you had to do. AI has just accelerated that.
Yeah. Now, what you said was kind of the speed bump was most great salespeople, Greg, I shouldn't say, well, a lot, did not love the time it took to input all the data in the Salesforces of the world, the CRMs, which you needed that to be able to run what you just said. So that's where we saw a little hiccup in that innovation. This time around, it's a lot faster because a lot of that's going to be done for them. Now, having said that, they're still going to have to get better at giving it good information. So this is where the change in the innovation, you have to look in the mirror and say, and I'll be honest, I wasn't always a big CRM guy because I thought it slowed me down. And so if I thought it slowed me down, you're going to have to really make a case for it, how it did. Well, those days are over. So if you don't have good habits as it relates to using some of the new CRM tools, you're living in a house with 8-foot ceilings as it relates to AI. It can only do so much with an average data set. So it's time to upskill your own skill base and say, all right, I've got to adopt new habits to be able to really sit and get the right data in such that it can help me. And I know, I get it. That's a old dog, new tricks. I understand, but that's happening.
So we'll talk about some tools. So from where you sit, uh, looking at this landscape, what are some of the most impactful AI tools that sales teams have available to them today, and how can those tools actually increase sales performance?
Yes, there's like two big choices there in that question, Greg. The first is we just call them off the shelf. So look, if a salesperson is not on Chat GPT or one of the large language models, Cohere, Perplexity, Gemini, Bard, there's a bunch out there. All of them have a free version. You need to get an account. So that's price to play in poker. Do not advance to go. Step one, get on. And then step two is to spend some time in a guide, which we have, and I can send you, Greg, where it shows them how to prompt. This is how to ask those questions that you want outcome from the Chat GPTs of the world. That's really important because a lot of times folks will just stare at it, Greg, and they don't really know what it can do. And that's an impasse because we're still, as humans, getting used to how to talk to these machines, right? And so that's number one. All right, once you get past that, there's some other really cool off-the-shelf and in most cases free tools. One would be, and you've probably used this, Calendly, which has the link that goes directly to your Outlook calendar. Can make, and it's not really AI per se, it's more automation. I would tell you this: 11 Labs is the leader in the space when it comes to all things audio. So text to speech, speech to speech, text to video. You're talking about back to the thing we talked about a minute ago, where we can get real tight on our messaging. Not only can we do that, we can do that in a fraction of the time with a group like 11 Labs. Cloning Greg Accardo's voice, sending all of Greg Accardo's students messages via text that are different based on a pull from the CRM. Happy birthday to Henry on his birthday in Greg's voice. Those kinds of things. The image generators these days, Greg, are next level. And ChatGPT 4.0 has a great one. Midjourney. I mean, there's a lot out there. Adobe has good image generators. And where would you use that? Well, back to the message generation. If you're going to try and segment your messages to not have one size fits all, well, then why not include images that appeal to the different segments. And so those are some other ones that we would recommend that are great. Synthesia is an AI company that creates kind of avatar training videos kind of on demand. Another really good one. So there's a bunch, but I would start with good old fashioned deep dive on the LLMs. ChatGPT is the most popular, and that's a great place to start.
So it seems to me, I mean, I guess I spent a good bit of time on LinkedIn, but there's been an explosion of AI related platforms and tools that are advertising. Seems to be an AI tool now for everything.
Yeah, they're coming quickly now. Here's a cautionary tale that it's really important for your business owners to understand, Greg. It's early, but we think at Disrupt Ready that the traditional software as service offerings are going to have a tough time keeping up in the AI world. Why? Because all those products were built to kind of have one size fit all. Now there's some customization around the edges, some white labeling, etc. But for the most part, it works the same way. Well, what everyone's figuring out is you want your data to help you dance, right? That's where the money is here. But you also don't want your data open to anyone else, nor do you want the person that you're buying a seat license from and give access to your data to make money on your data, right? So the way we build and the way we think about it is LSU needs to have their own private sandbox to where all their student data is under their control. And no one else is in the aggregate training on their data. That's really, really important because once you get used to these license fee agreements, the second you quit paying it, what are you left with, right? And that's a Web 2, Web 3 concept. We are big believers in that. And so that can be done pretty easily in a private or a closed loop large language model environment. And we build those too. So look, we're just getting started, which means time to get fun with the tools is now. But you should do that in your own sandbox environment. And that can be for the smallest of businesses on up to the biggest.
I wonder, and I guess this is going to be coming up next because, I'm in academia and, I work around a lot of really good, smart people that do a lot of high level research in sales and sales management. The next domain to study is going to be what impact does the AI tools that a sales professional use have on customers?
No, I think that's, and there could be a bunch of other ones as well. I think the productivity of a company that adopted these procedures and these products, as opposed to the ones who don't, that's also a very interesting research field to me. And if you level up, Greg, I think the more interesting question is it's just a question of change. What a fascinating time to do research on humans, specifically salespeople, to figure out why do some change quicker than others, and what's going on in that matrix up in this mind of ours, because that's going to be a big sign of the winners and losers who got there earlier, because they'll have the scars, they'll have the skin knees. So
Yeah, and look, if salespeople are guilty of any sin, it's that they will typically overuse a tool. Getting back to how does this impact customers? So, you gave salespeople years ago a tool called email, and how long did it take before they abused it? And then what it did was it caused customers to have a reaction to what they don't respond.
yep.
There's too much coming in, right?
Well, yep.
So, AI, I'm looking at it going, what's going to be the reaction once salespeople who undoubtedly they're going to abuse it. I mean, it's going to happen. It's going to get overused because there's a profit motive in it. Uh, Customers are going to react. Okay, then there's going to be this pushback, and it's a never ending cycle. New tool, new technology, overuse, customer reaction.
Yeah. Look, before email, Greg, it was the telephone.
Telephone, exactly. So they
There
opened up the
was a
telephone.
day,
People quit answering the phone. You had caller ID, so I didn't have to answer it.
there was a day if Greg and Henry were salespeople before the phone, we would meet in a neighborhood somewhere,
Yep.
get dropped off, and we'd walk blocks. And that was our day, door to
Mhm.
door. And then this thing called the phone came to be. And you're right, that was abused as well. So the art to me is understanding the tech, knowing that it's your friend, and then pulling selfishly which pieces fit Greg. Just Greg, right? Because what Greg wants to do is not upset his customer. Greg wants to serve more customers and have them repeat buyers from him. So that to me is the killer win. That's you don't do much better than that.
Yeah. They always say if you got a brand new tool and you want to destroy it, give it to marketers. So let me ask you this. I mean, this is curious. So let's say business owner has sales team wants to evolve into the AI space. They come to you. What would be some of the misconceptions that you would want to help them address before they started that journey?
It's super expensive. Seriously, it's not. And the way we build, Greg, we put their minds on more. This forget software. This is really like a virtual employee. Meaning, if Greg Accardo knew that a new staffer could do A, B, and C really well, so you knew that was the output, and then you could tie that output to revenue, you'd say, okay, well, it's worth X for my company, right? We'd say, okay, take that same thinking and apply it to AI because it can do that. Like I said, if it could speed your salespeople up such that they could make a quantifiable number of face-to-face presentations more over week, quarter, year, and they had a close rate, it's just math. So a lot of people think they're too small, they can't get in, and it's too expensive. That's not correct. That's one of the biggest things. The second thing is, and we still hear it, it's that this is going to put people out of their jobs. And we push back to say, folks who know how to use the technology will put people out of their jobs, not the tech itself, because the tech itself isn't designed to do that. Now, everything we've built to this date, Greg, I can tell you, we pulled tasks from people. Let me tell you what they don't do. They don't call me and tell me, can you give me that boring, mundane, repetitive task back? Because they didn't like doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So we're already kind of, that's another major misconception. And then I think a third one is accuracy. We get a lot, again, which I'll ask, like, okay, let's talk about what we're replacing. So what's our goal and what are we replacing? And then let's set a baseline of how accurate the current system today is, because we can beat it. So even if the computers aren't 100% accurate, it's going to be more accurate than what you're doing today. So those are three.
So that would be the first fear that you probably hear, is that most business leaders think that it's too expensive.
Yep. And they don't have an idea of where to slot this in their head. Is it a SaaS purchase? Is it a software purchase? Is it a full-time employment? Like it's really hard for them to put that anywhere.
Well, I mean, take Chat GPT-4. So $20 a month, that's the price of a lunch.
That's right.
And if you can eliminate 3/4 of the tasks that a salesperson has to do just because they had that one $20 a month subscription, I mean, there's ROI there.
Well, the other thing is this, Greg. I'll tell you what it would gently spur. Most salespeople do not step into a major superpower, which is posting on LinkedIn. They don't for whatever reason, and there's a lot of excuses. Well, guess what? ChatGPT 4.0 is there. That's the savior for them, because not only can it write the post, it can write as many as you want in the voice that you want, with calls to action, hashtags, images. So there's no more excuse, because in sales, it's a crowded world already. So we have to do things to get our voices heard. If that's just where your salespeople start, it's worth the $20 a month.
So what is your advice to sales professionals who need to prepare themselves to be efficient with AI technologies?
Well, again, I'd say start with playing around with GPT and start with a guide. Start with prompting. Figure out what that is and the power of prompting. And then what we do there, Greg, is we begin a little snowball that rolls downhill. And they understand, oh, now I truly get the power. Don't focus on the noise, focus on the signal, right? Because there's a lot of noise out there. And then once you really hone in on that signal, you'll begin to ask questions like, well, what else can it do? But it all starts with you got to get an account and you got to get it good at prompting.
Are you getting a lot of requests for that specific service to help people with that?
Honestly, Greg, we're still at a point where people don't know what they don't know. And so most of it is still in the early kind of educational stages.
Well, we have a class now in the LSU College of Business in a technology department about how it's prompt engineering. In our ISDS department. It was the Stevenson Entrepreneurship Department. But we're now offering a class so students can skill up in prompting AI.
And that is I'm guessing it's in a non-technical.
Well, it's in a business school. So this is not a computer science class. This is information systems, decision science, entrepreneurship, and how students can utilize AI tools. But you can utilize AI tools, but if you don't know how to prompt it, then that's the problem.
Yeah, that's cart before the horse. Mm-hmm. That class is great, Greg. Let me tell you why. If those kids just come out of that class and they know how to, they really take it seriously and they know they're really good at it, that is immediate employability, immediate in so many of the people that we work with, because these businesses do not have that function. So if all they did, or that's another business idea, if all they did was teach how to prompt, the power of the prompting, I'm telling you, that is sought after in today's market.
So Henry, we have about 15 minutes left today. So why don't we take that 15 minutes and let's predict the future. So let's start off with the biggest changes you see in the next decade in sales with AI.
I think we're going to get to a point where the letters AIA become synonymous with any great salesperson. Artificially intelligent agents. So Greg will have 24 that perform niche tasks for him. For instance, one might just scan and scrape LinkedIn in real time to report back to Greg on people that he should connect with. That's it. Another might reply to his emails that he set in a certain cadence that need a quick answer and Greg doesn't need to touch. Another might do personal things for Greg, make appointments, send thank you notes, watch your own personal billing. These things are going to start to line up. 5 years from now, Greg, 95% of the internet traffic in today's internet will be AIAs. So they'll be constantly looking and doing things on behalf of their human bosses. So the great salespeople will get their arms around how to use these AIAs so much that it can free them up to do the things that they're great at. And for most salespeople, that's this. That's the one-to-one. Or that's entertaining a client or whatever else it is that they need to do. That's one. The second I would say would be, I think messaging is going to be radically changed. I think the days of, again, a Nissan Rogue at halftime of the LSU football game being seen by everyone at the same time is going to be thought of as barbaric. And we're going to have completely different one-to-one messaging that changes a lot.
So, okay, here we are. So we're in the future. We're sales professionals. Now we got to identify what are the skills that they need to develop to stay competitive in an AI-driven market.
It's a great question. And the majority of the skill is right here, Greg. It's mindset. Okay? Because, look, we can teach anybody a skill that we want. You can't teach someone how to have a positive mindset as it relates to change. Meaning, don't sit there and think that Arnold Schwarzenegger was right and the robots are going to kill us all, and stay in the group that it's always negative. That's an easy thing to do. That's lazy. Tougher is to say, I'm going to dig in, I'm going to find out for myself, and then I'm going to find out where I can pick and choose so that it helps me. I'm going to be selfish. That's a great, growing, positive mindset. That's not new with respect to the greats in sales as opposed to the good to average. The greats have a really great mindset, and it's constantly about iterating, changing, adding to their game. So honestly, that is a large majority of the quotient of who will win or lose.
Yeah. Have you had a peek at any new emerging technologies, AI technologies that you think will be really exciting for salespeople?
Yeah. So if you want to get a little bit deeper into the technology, deep learning. So if you think of big circles, artificial intelligence, big circle.
Mm-hmm.
Subset is machine learning. Smaller subset, deep learning. The deep learning pieces, Greg, are where it gets really interesting. The deep learning piece will have the abilities to really sit on a corpus of data and be proactive in the way that it helps salespeople. For instance, a deep learning mechanism would tell a Greg Accardo, this sleeve of your customer base is at risk of opting out and going elsewhere. That's really, really important information, right? But that's a deep learning type of output, and we're going to get there. Neural networks are what kind of help drive the deep learning space. Again, getting there, not there yet commercially, but that's coming too. And so again, that's why I stressed the best day to get in was yesterday, so that when this does show up, you're not starting at ground zero.
So that's that deep learning is that's kind of the spooky part, but I think it's exciting at the same time. Because we'll see where that goes. So we got about 10 minutes. So why don't we go ahead and we'll wrap this up and let's get some closing thoughts. We could go on here for days and talk about this. So what would be your final piece of advice, Henry, that you would give business leaders, sales leaders who may be a little still hesitant to embrace these disruptive technologies? Help them out.
So I'd say, look, the genie's out of the bottle. The game is afoot. If we're doing this 6 months ago, Greg, I would still have to kind of implore and get on my soapbox as to what's coming. It's here. We're building this stuff every day. I know what's coming because we're building it. There's not an industry that exists that has somebody in it hasn't stepped in to say, hey, build this for us. Now, why don't you hear about that? Because the folks that make those early decisions realize they've got a game changer in their hands and they're not telling anybody. So that's why you don't see this in the media. But I'm telling you the truth. So if the game is afoot, most of your salespeople and business executives or athletes, whether it's college or high school or both, it's time to get competitive. If you know that your competitor is in something called the internet in the late 90s, knowing what we know now, of course, you're going to bust a trail to get to the internet, right? Well, this is that, only much, much faster. So it's time to get competitive. And then look, I would say this too. It's time to lead. And leadership to me in this day and age is, hey, we're gonna go counterculture, meaning we're gonna check it out without an opinion, right? I'm gonna shed the clickbait headlines. I'm gonna shed the noise, and we're gonna do the work ourselves to make our own opinion. It's time to do that because again, they're in every industry. It's coming, and so now the question becomes, how selfish can you be? And I'm pushing people to be selfish. Make it work for you. It's like saying, if I give you a glass thing of ink, Greg, with a feather pen, you're going to write me a thank you note with that? No. You're going to use your phone to text me, or you're going to write a letter because we have advancements. This is just another advancement. And so, and again, I would double down on the mindset. It's a lot about mindset.
So, Henry, how can our listeners learn more about Disrupt Ready and get in touch with you, maybe for potential collaborations or even working with you?
And my preferred way, Greg, is LinkedIn. I love the platform. We post on there all the time. There's a lot of good resources there, and it's Henry Hayes, Hays. We're at disruptready.com, which tells you a lot about our digital assets team university. A lot of really good content there too. And then my email is really easy, henry@disruptready.com. I do a lot of front end education. I love to talk to big groups because we need to still do that. I teach a class at LSU on this. I'm very big on the younger generation leading the way here. And so, those are a few of the ways to get in touch with me.
If there are any faculty out there listening to this, you offer yourself to maybe do a guest lecture virtually for their class?
I've done probably a dozen of those, most on LSU's campus. I did one at MIT, and I've done some at some other schools around the country. But again, love the purple and gold. I love guest lecturing. As you can see, I'm passionate about this. So I would love to help any of the faculty at LSU.
Yeah. Well, I always hope that LSU is setting the standard. So hopefully we're trailblazing in the AI space here at LSU.
And I'll tell you, a lot of credit goes to the provost, Dr. Roy Haggerty, for that. Dr. Haggerty has blazed the trail and set up LSU as, frankly, one of the leaders in the country. I mean, we were running our class, Greg, where we had private businesses, big private businesses, matched with the top 12 to 15 computer science minds on our campus, and kind of chasing what is this and let's find it together. But that didn't exist in hardly any other campus. So we're really proud of that, and he's really been a major part of that. So hats off to him.
Yeah, congratulations. So, well, Henry, it's been a blast. Informative, always intriguing, and you always get me thinking about things that I need to be doing different. And so you do challenge people. So I appreciate it again. Thank you for joining us today on the Talking Sales podcast. And we're all sitting here. We're ready to get started. So it's
and Greg, to close, I'll pull one of your lines. You're right. Even with or without AI, nothing happens until something gets sold.
Exactly.
That's still true.
All right. Hey, Henry, thanks again, and looking forward to talking to you some more.
My pleasure.
Okay.